This is basically a secondary feature or continuation from the earlier core features class, and it has a specific focus. It's basically broken up into 3 different sections. The first section, which is actually going to be a pretty long section, it's got about be here before we have our first break for a good 45 minutes or so, maybe even longer. It's going to be all about the bed inventory, basically usage, checking people in and out of the beds, and maintenance surrounding that. Then we'll go into take a break, then we'll go into a referral section, and then we'll finish up with wait list. As with all the other classes, we always mention that there's so much packed into the system. We'll try, we always try to cover as much as we can during the trainings, but we have a bunch of system feature guides specific to these trainings that we'll talk about at the end of the training class. Data collection, it is required. How to use requires the use of HMI system, compatible database for collection of ESG, COC, SHP, shelter-plus care, a whole bunch of state and federally funded programs. The system does support the collection of victims of domestic violence. However, any service provider as defined by VAWA is still prohibited from entering their client data into the PHMIS system per applicable state laws. Just want to go over that, make sure everybody got that. Here's the class agenda. Of course, we're going over the housing inventory. That'll be lion's share of the beginning part. I'm going to go over the inventory check-in, check-out, basically the usage part of it. Go over some management tools, go over a very interactive inventory review screen. Then we'll jump into our collaborative tools with client referrals, which provide the ability to do reservations, wait list requests, and then finally the agency wait list. As I said before, it assumes that all attendees are taking the core features training class, and you basically understand the basic entry process in the system, basically the intake for the new clients, especially in regards to the program events, enrollment, and exit. We're going to use a lot of those themes, basic features as a continuation, and we're going to kind of explain things as if you already know those core features. It's all inventory and basically referrals and wait lists is what you're going to see today. When organizations accurately define and maintain their housing inventories, this will allow for residential program participants to be checked in and out of those inventory items to effectively track lengths of stay, actual inventory usage, and hopefully it can be used for numerous reports such as APRs, and also eventually once we get everybody on board, hopefully everybody on board, things like AHAR, HIC and PIT counts will be a lot easier using this method. This does not cover any kind of inventory setup or configuration processes. This is going to assume that all inventory items have been properly created or maintained. Basically, all that setup process is an agency manager type function. We are going to cover all that tomorrow morning, the Wednesday and Thursday morning. We're dealing with all the agency manager functions, and that will be a large portion of that class. Finally, please note that this bed management model, kind of daily bed features, was designed to be used and maintained in real time. Now, while the system will allow for some backfilling of past data or fixing past data, we do recommend tracking all household stays and inventory occupancy on a daily basis. It's basically what it's designed to do. And with a lot of things like collaborative tools, referrals, wait list, having accurate inventory to kind of transfer or basically be able to broadcast to other agencies is pretty pivotal to sharing information throughout the system. The class will cover the process of checking clients in and out of, basically we have 3 different inventory items that can be created and maintained. They're beds, units which are basically containers for beds, and vouchers. A couple different processes that can be used for those. Process of putting a person into a vacant or open bed, basic inventory item is referred to as a check-in, and conversely, the process of exiting or removing a person from an inventory item is known as a check-out. So I just want to put those terms up front because we're going to use them a lot throughout this class. Now, once the basics are covered of checking people in and checking people out, that's when we're going to go over a bunch of advanced features that should really help users, all users of the agency, really manage their daily inventory and agency inventory records. Housing inventory in the system is set up and defined on a per residential program and site basis. Now, while most programs in the system will have, a lot of them just have a single program and a site, because programs are basically the program that's administrated, while site is kind of changed to be, you know, the actual physical location where the program is being administered. A lot of them are one-to-one, but for those residential programs, we allow for them to create and define multiple sites, if you so choose. Every program and site combination or association will have their own inventory. And basically, inventory gets created on the fly. There's nothing needs to be done. And residential programs that can maintain housing inventory include the following types, which are emergency shelters, transitional housing programs, permanent supportive housing programs, permanent housing, safe havens, as well as a couple VA-funded programs, which are VASH and VA GVP, which is Grant Per Diem, which is actually a type of transitional housing program. Each housing inventory record will have a specific status associated with it. It denotes its current state, and only inventories with a status of active. Each record will have active. They can also have other statuses such as unconfigured, no inventory, expired, but only the active inventories can actually be used to track client stays. Basically, an inventory becomes active once it has at least one inventory item that is configured and ready for usage. So if you're kind of working with your agency and you notice that, you know, an inventory record should be configured but it's not, or you should have extra ones, that's something to bring up with agency managers since they handle all the configuration. Some inventory stay guidelines before we get into the process. Housing inventory, as of right now, can only be used within a program stay. It's kind of all connected. It's another kind of a service provided within a program stay. And no client, you can't be independently checked into a bed without being in a residential program. A couple notes about the day. Also, the inventory stay, kind of like services that we talked about, must occur during that program participation time period. So any check-in dates cannot occur prior to the program entry date, and conversely, checkout dates also cannot occur after the program exit date. So if anybody tries to put in dates like that, the system will definitely catch those and throw up validation messages as you see on the screen. Another inventory stay guideline we want to talk about to allow all current and historical stays to be reported correctly and allow inventory usage to be calculated properly in the system. Will not allow, there's a couple overlap rules that kind of come on the case. Both one on the client side, one on the inventory item side. A client cannot occupy more than one inventory item at the same time. It's basically, you know, when you're doing, kind of like with program stays, when you're doing inventory stays, they're all based on dates, you know, when they checked in, when they checked out. So during that client's check-in time, he can't be in more than one bed, unit, or voucher at one time. If you try to log in, you know, check in someone, a client into another bed, it'll basically catch you and flash the message up on the screen. Same thing goes for actual inventory items. More than two people can't be in the same bed at the same time. Same thing with unit beds. If that happens or occurs, the system will definitely has a lot of validation in there to catch overlaps to make sure that everything is the usage is properly done. The one exception to that is vouchers, since vouchers is kind of an open item. It does allow multiple people to be simultaneously checked into it, and that's basically one exception, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about specific check-in processes. The check-in process, stated previously, when you put someone into an inventory item, it's called a check-in, and there's two basic ways to do it in the system. There's actually three. We added a third way. But the two main ways to do it kind of in real time is the program enrollment. It actually embeds the check-in function in the final step of the entry process. So if you're enrolling people into a residential program, the system, and if you have active inventory, the system will go ahead and allow you to do it all in the same step. Now, of course, the system also allows for what we have a bed management model created. Every residential program within the program record has the ability, it's got a bunch of features associated. One of them is allows for check-ins after the enrollment. As with the other actions in the system, we're going toward household-based processes. Inventory processes, of course, allow multiple members to be simultaneously checked in to their single inventory items as well. Now, we recommend using the bed check-in feature within the enrollment process, especially when the client's inventory stay is going to specifically mirror that program stay, and you're going to be putting them in, a unit for, their whole program stay. We definitely recommend using that because it's easily embedded. It just adds to the program setup, which you need to do or program enrollment, which you need to do everybody anyway. It kind of reduces any additional step that's needed. We're going to kind of talk about these steps here. There's the program enrollment. Now, when enrolling a client into a residential program, the inventory stay information is included. Once you get to this final screen here, any residential program basically will have an extra option down here. It's basically called the bed check-in method. And depending on what you check here, the system will basically do different things with these clients. Now, the logic kind of works the same way as the enrollment, where you have the household grid up here, and depending on who you check, you can include all clients, one of the clients. The system will continue to loop around during that process. While during the program stuff, we talked about how you can share inventory stuff or program enrollment stuff. Same thing is true of the inventory stuff. So you have a lot of flexibility for how you not only enroll people in the programs, but how you check them into inventory. So it kind of goes hand in hand with both of these processes. Now, with the bed check-in method, it consists of 3 basic selections, and it must be answered for all residential programs. And they're basically none, quick, and detailed. Those are the 3 options that you have, and we'll go over those in the next slide. But those residential programs that do not have any active inventory, the system basically kind of pulls the program's inventory that you're looking at, and if there isn't any active stuff, you'll actually come to it, and the bed check-in method will be defaulted to not active. Basically, you're not allowed to use inventory at that time. Maybe you can enroll them at a later time once the inventory has been configured. The check-in methods, as I said before, they're none, quick, and detailed. None is pretty straightforward. That indicates that none of the selected clients will be checked into any inventory during the enrollment process. It basically skips any inventory stuff and basically just performs the enrollments. Then quick and detailed methods, now they both indicate that, the selected clients during the process are going, it basically says, tells the system, hey, I want to do some inventory. I want to put these guys into some inventory. But they differ a little bit in each process. Quick, pretty much exactly as it sounds, and it basically provides a briefer way to place the selected clients into inventory and should be used when you're looking for a non-specific check-in. Needs to be performed when the stay is going to exactly mirror the program stay. Because what the quick does is basically you pick a specific type. Hey, I want to put them in bed. Hey, I want to put them in units. But it doesn't allow you to pick, bed 1, bed 2. It just is smart enough to go, hey, I want to put all the selected clients into the next available item. So if you don't really care where they go, you just want to get them in, that's a perfect option for you there. Now, detailed is kind of the exact opposite, and not only lets you pick the type, beds, but it actually allows you to put each person that you selected into an actual inventory item. It is more in-depth, takes a little more, a couple steps, but it does provide a lot of precision and flexibility when managing your inventory. Now, once you've selected either quick or detailed, the first thing that the system is going to prompt you for is the check-in date. And the check-in date basically denotes the first day of the inventory stay, and it's kind of a global feature again. All the selected clients will basically share the same inventory stay. Once you enter that in, basically all you have to do is hit a next button here, and basically the system will take you to the next step. After you've entered in the check-in date, and basically after it's entered, the check-in date basically gets locked in. See here, if at any time you want to change that date, or you made a mistake, or the inventory that you see doesn't meet whatever that you want to see, you can just hit the clear check-in date. Now it will reset anything you've done, but it will clear that field and allow you to, re-enter a new check-in date. But directly below that, the next thing that will be asked to be selected is what we call the bed type. Now these are basically, the system has 4 different kinds of inventory items that can be configured. 2 of them are bed types. You've got facility beds, non-facility beds, units, and vouchers. Now, depending on which one you select, basically that'll kind of, the system will dynamically build the next screens depending on that item and depending on the requirements of those items. Now, the system also builds this bed type selection list dynamically depending on, the status of your current inventory, what's configured, what's filled, that sort of thing. It only shows inventory types that A, are available in your inventory, and B, have the ability to meet the demand of your selected clients. Kind of give you an example here. You might have 3 clients that you want to try to enroll into inventory, but you may only have 2 available beds. Now, the system will look at it and say, well, since every client selected needs to go into some inventory during this process, it knows, hey, the beds aren't going to meet this person's, these clients' needs, so it'll automatically take it out of the bed type list. Now, any bed type that is pulled out of the bed type list, it'll flash a message if any of them are removed, and it'll say the following inventory types are not available because they're full, unconfigured, or future stays have been noticed. And then it'll show basically the bed type. Now, at this point in time, you can continue with the process. You can, if you're looking for a specific bed type, you can, go back and just enroll them into the program and then kind of deal with the inventory later. Or you can go and unselect certain clients so that you can do it maybe one at a time. So you got a lot of flexibility here depending on what kind of inventory needs these clients have. Now, depending on the bed type, and I actually got a quick note here about the quick method. As we said before, the quick method, basically all you have to do is select the type, and then the system will basically automatically place them into, and kind of what it does is it's the next available chronological bed that was completed. Once you've selected the bed type, that's pretty much it. All you have to do is hit the Save button right below it, and the system will basically perform both the enrollment and check the clients into the bed all in one process. Pretty quick and easy. However, for the detailed method, it takes it a little bit further and does require unique configuration. And depending on the type you pick, and we'll kind of go over the different types there, it asks for a little bit different information. Now, for facility or non-facility beds, which are, basically beds, so whichever one's picked, it's going to have the same interface. It'll basically, depending on the number of clients that are included during this enrollment check-in loop, it'll dynamically build the screen here depending on the number. It could be 1 person, could be 10 people, and each one of them will have a little select a bed selection next to them. That'll basically, the system will have all the vacant and open beds that these clients can be checked into. Again, it builds them dynamically, so any bed that's currently filled, of course, won't be available. And you basically assign each person a bed from the drop-down list. As you can see, you put bed 8 for this person, bed 9 for that person, and it's pretty much provides a lot of flexibility here. One thing to note is when you do assign a bed to a person, the system doesn't rebuild the list. Basically, each list just shows the complete set of vacant items. So be careful not to select, bed 9 to more than 1 person. If you do that, the system will catch it and kind of bring up an error and say, hey, you put 2 people in the same bed, but that's just something to notice. Also, within these lists, for both beds, units, and vouchers, the system basically displays the name of the bed or the inventory item. Now, when an inventory item is created by default, it basically gives it, whatever the item is plus its ID number. So it could be, bed 333, bed 334. Those can always be renamed. So this is something we'll cover in agency manager training, but we definitely recommend people specifically naming their inventory because it'll make this process a lot easier so they don't have to guess, where's bed 11 again? You can name it bed, 3 downstairs or however you want to name it for your agency or program. With units, units is probably the most in-depth because it not only entails selecting the specific unit, but also the beds within the unit. It's kind of a 2-step process. First thing that comes up, basically you need to put all the clients into an individual unit. At this point in time, the system doesn't allow you to split them up and put them in multiple units. Again, that's where you need to use the flexibility of the enrollment loop if you want to put them in multiple units. So basically, you select it from the drop-down list, and once you've selected the unit, it will basically automatically assign each client a bed within that unit. As I explained before, units basically don't hold any real configuration. They don't have a household type or anything like that. It's basically a container to configure beds within those units. So with any unit, you're actually putting the people in the beds within the unit, not just the unit itself. So that's how it kind of works throughout the system. Now, even though they're automatically assigned to each person, don't worry, you can always, if you don't like the bed arrangement, you say, hey, I want to put this person in bed 4. You can go ahead and do that. Basically, each drop-down will have all the beds in the unit. You can change that around to however you like for the assignments. Once you're done there, you basically hit save, and that's how you configure, put people into a unit. Now, with units, there is some cases, there could be a prompt that needs to be completed. Not there for every unit. But what it does is if the unit, once you do the actual check-in, if the total number of beds in the unit aren't completely filled, basically the unit capacity is more than the actual clients that are enrolled in it, the system asks a secondary question that basically says, should this unit be considered full? Because the system's really not sure. You have a 4-person unit, but you only put 3 in it. The system's saying, hey, well, what should we do with it? If you answer, and it basically needs to be answered with a yes or no question, if you answer yes, that basically means the system will consider that unit as full and closed out. And basically, no other people will be able to be put into that unit until, of course, until it becomes vacant again for that vacant bed. However, if you do want to leave that unit open for additional clients to be put into the other beds in the unit, you can select no. Now, at this point, once you've answered that question, basically, that's not something that's set in stone. We actually have some options on the review screen that allow you to change that. So don't be afraid that if you set it and then you realize, oh, I wanted to set it the other way, you do have the ability to change that after the fact, and we'll show you during the management feature of the training. Okay, vouchers. Vouchers kind of mimics beds, but it's almost like a hybrid of units. Basically, you just select the single voucher, open vacant vouchers that you want to assign all the clients to. Like I said, this is kind of a hybrid where this is the only item where you can actually put multiple clients into a single voucher, because vouchers are one of those things that are kind of virtual payments for housing, whether it's a shelter, hotel, motel voucher, or even a temporary housing voucher. And when you create it, you're not sure if it's going to be for 1 person or 4 people or 8 people. The system kind of leaves it open, allows you guys to control what you want to do with it. Now, with vouchers, it also prompts. And now, unlike units that only does it under certain situations, vouchers actually prompts a secondary question every time that should this voucher be considered closed to additional persons? Again, because the system's not sure and it is an open inventory item, kind of asks this question. And the answer is kind of the same. If you answer yes, that means that that voucher is basically closed out and not available for any more people to be put into it. If you select no, it does leave it open for additional persons to be checked into it. And as with the unit full, the voucher closed feature can be altered after the fact on the review screen as well. And that's pretty much it. That's how you configure and put, along with the enrollment, to also proceed with bed check-in during the enrollment process. It's pretty quick and easy, kind of involved in that same process. Now, we do have what we call a bed management module before we get into the actual features here within it that is available and present at the bottom of the screen anytime you open up a residential program. Now, this area provides information on the current client status, their household information, and it also provides utilities to actually do check-ins, check-outs, also provides, see that bed history tool here? That's a very in-depth tool that allows a lot of viewing of historical closed-out stays and editing that we'll get into as well. Basically, every person will have a couple different statuses. They'll be not checked in, means they're not in inventory, or their status could be checked in which they are currently in inventory. Now, along with all the other processes, the system also shows household information along inside this bed management model. So anybody that's checked into a residential program with a household, it'll show the household name along with all the household information by default. It'll show their names, and also if they're in inventory, it'll show their inventory information as well, because as I'll show you, it allows household-based check-ins and check-outs. Now, with these households, we had to be very particular with, what information we showed with households, because even if a client is currently enrolled in a household with other members, only if those other household members are within or enrolled in that residential program with them, plus they have the exact same stay dates, which means both entry and exit dates, only under that situation will they show up in this grid. Now, if you have other household members that are in the program but don't match the dates, you'll basically see a little message here that says, hey, you got other household clients, but they kind of need their inventory done separately. And the reason we did this is because of the whole multiple stays where people can be enrolled in the multiple programs. Unless the stay dates are exactly the same, when we do inventory functions, we have to know which record to attach it to. And unless they're exactly the same, it could be a previous stay or previous 2 stays ago. We didn't want to, switch up inventory with different program stays. Now, as we said, there is the functions directly within this bed management module, which you can do individually or with a household. If you're an individual person, you basically just click the check-in button. It's always available when the status is not checked in. Basically takes you through the process. Now, if you do have household members available, if you want to include them in whatever process you're doing, basically you just check these boxes. You need to make sure you check the household member before you do the process. Then once you hit check-in, basically it'll take whatever client you're on plus those household clients into the process. Now, of course, whatever process you're doing, if you're doing a check-in, the clients can't be in a current inventory item or they won't be allowed to be checked. Then it will kind of take you to a separate screen where the focus is just on checking people into a household or into a inventory item, and it basically follows the same exact rules as the detailed check-in method. Basically, it's going to ask you for a date. When you continue on, it'll then ask you for a bed type, and then depending on the bed type, the system will dynamically build the screen depending on the number of clients included. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. It's exactly the same as the enrollment process. But here's just a notice here, the inventory review screen. We basically have links. Not only can you get that to that from your start page, but whenever you're doing an inventory process or possibly could do an inventory process, whether it's a program enrollment, program exit, or standalone, we always allow this inventory review screen to be here. That when selected, we'll actually load the review screen in real time in a brand new window. So it allows you to kind of supplement that information you're doing, because you might get to the check-in and go, oh yeah, which beds are open, what do I want to put them in? That screen you can just go ahead and load, get a quick reference point, and continue with the process. Okay, now we're going to go with the actual checkout process within the standalone mode, and it pretty much is provided kind of the same areas as the check-in. It can be performed during the checkout. It's basically we got functionality embedded within the exit process for residential programs. Then, of course, within the bed management module, also allows for checkout processes to occur, and both of them, of course, do allow for multiple household members to be included in all these processes. Now, one note about the exit, if you're performing a program exit for a residential program and you have clients still checked in the inventory, at that point in time, the system will require them to be checked out prior to completing the process. So basically, we want to make sure everybody knows that, when you're exiting guys from the program, clients can't, they may still physically be in the inventory item for certain programs, but from a data collection standpoint, they cannot be. The exit process pretty much mirrors that of the enrollment. Basically, you've got the household selection grid, whichever ones you select, all the different combinations that the system will loop through doing the exit process. Now, if you check any client that is currently still in inventory that needs to be checked out, the system will basically pop up and disappear this inventory checkout date. The checkout process is immensely easier than the check-in date. Check-in process is basically the system is just needs a date. What it will do is, depending on the selected clients, it'll basically check them out all with the same checkout date. It's basically like the check-in, they share the same date. So if you need to check out clients or exit clients with different checkout dates, you need to use the basic looping functionality for that to occur. Now, unlike the actual check-ins that only allows people to all be put in like the same unit, same voucher, that sort of thing, when you're checking people out, the system doesn't really care what items they're in. You could have one guy in a bed, one guy in a unit, and one guy in a voucher. I mean, regardless of how real world that'll happen or not, the system, as long as it collects a date, it'll check them all out of whatever inventory item they're in at that time. So you don't need to worry about doing things based on what item people are in. The system will handle that for you. With the standalone process, basically, pretty much as simple. Anybody that's currently checked into inventory will have that status, and they'll basically, for that person you're looking at, will basically have the inventory information here loaded. It'll show the bed type, the name, and when they were checked into. Of course, if, you know, with the household members, it'll have the grid, as well as their entry dates, check-in dates, bed names, and bed types. So basically, you get a glimpse at the information they have. Basically, you just hit the checkout. Same thing with the household. If you want them included in this process, you need to make sure you check them before you hit that checkout box. Once that's done, it kind of takes you to a separate, secondary process that basically just focuses on this checkout, and pretty much all that's required is a date. Once you enter in the date, hit the checkout button again, and that's pretty much the process. That's it. Now we're going to go into, now that we know kind of how to put people in, take people out of beds in a couple different ways, we're going to go over some tools within the system that we should provide some assistance to overseeing their inventory. Also, and that's the inventory review screen. We think it's a very powerful tool. It's all done in real time, seeing all the aspects of an inventory record, as well as the bed management module we showed does have check-in and check-out features. It also assists of a couple other data collection processes, for backfilling of data, fixing, incorrect information, and we'll kind of go into that as well. Inventory review screen, that is basically developed to assist all users to provide real-time interface to track current inventory availability and usage. Everybody on their start menu or their start page, any user that has access to a residential program will also have corresponding access to that program's inventory. By clicking on these links on the start page, it'll automatically load the review screen. We also showed you the links that are within the program record page to bring up. Shows a lot of good information there. Now this kind of shows you what the inventory review screen looks like when it's loaded. Since the system kind of breaks up the inventory into 4 different inventory or bed types, that's how the inventory review screen displays them. Up at the top of the screen, there'll basically be 4 different tabs. They'll be there for every inventory, whether you have it defined or not. It's basically did that for consistency. You've got your facility beds, non-facility beds, units, and vouchers. Each one of them display a little bit of different information based on unique traits to each one, and we'll kind of go over those further in the class. But the inventory items, every single inventory item that's available for your program will be displayed on this screen. It's basically only items that are available configured for inventory check-ins. So if you have inventory that are still not configured or closed out, they will not appear on this screen. It's kind of a real-time snapshot of all your useful inventory. Every single item will appear as a button. Basically beds, unit beds, as well as vouchers all show a button, and they're basically denoted by a caption, basically their name. Again, one of the reasons to specifically name your inventory items, that's helpful here as well. A couple features with the review screen. It also not just provides general information about your inventory. There's a lot of drill down screens. We actually developed a pretty interesting pop-up kind of feature within the system that when you click on an individual inventory item, whether it's a bed or a voucher, by just click on the button, it'll actually pop up information that's kind of the physical or setup configuration information about that item. It'll show things like the ID, the name, the bed type, its availability, household type, whether it's an HMIS participating. Also, it'll show when the inventory, the start date of it was. And then it'll also show the basic status of it, whether it's occupied, whether it's vacant, and also show information on how long it's been occupied, the last time it's been occupied. It also has a little description area that you can use or not use. That's optional depending on what you want to put in there. So it's very good information to show based on every inventory item. Now, just as a note, the system is very flexible, and a lot of this information, like availability, house type, HMIS participating, those are during the, done during the setup, and they are required data elements that HUD requires us to collect. But we don't put any inhibit anything in there. So just because a bed, has a household type of adults only, doesn't mean you just have to put adults in it. It's basically just an estimated label of what you think that bed's going to be used, but we don't put any restrictions on it. Same thing with HMIS participating. If you don't put it, if you say, hey, it's not HMIS participating, you can still use it. And what we'd like to do at the, once inventory gets rolling is be able to produce reports that basically provide this information to you on not only a setup base, but a true usage base for everyone. Not only along with the inventory setup information that it provides, it actually, and this is one of the neater parts of the actual review screen, it displays real-time information on each item's current status in regards to client usage. Inventory items that are currently empty, which is also referred to the system as vacant, and available for check-in. Basically, you'll see here, like bed 3, 3804 and 3805, they're vacant. If you don't have any icons next to them, you know that, hey, I can put people in them. However, those items that are currently occupied have basically one of two little icon designations, kind of people icons by them. So anytime you see a little blue guy or this multicolored family, you'll know someone is actively occupying that bed. Now, depending on the person that's occupying it, the icons change a little bit. Anybody that's a single person, and just a note here, it doesn't, those icon designations aren't who is currently occupying the bed. It's basically the relationship of the person occupying the bed to other people in the program. So anytime you see a little blue guy there, a little blue icon, that means that the person occupying this bed is basically an individual. They're by themselves, they're either in a system household or they're in a manual household all by themselves. Basically, when you're dealing with that person, that's all you need to work with. However, if you see the household identification, now that doesn't mean there's a whole household in a bed, because that can't really happen, but that means that the person in that bed is here in this program with other household members. As you can see here, it's probably, all 4 of these beds are probably occupied by the same household. It basically gives you an indication that, hey, when you're looking at that person or dealing with that person, you can't just deal with that person singularly. You probably need to deal with that person and other household members jointly. Now, with these icons, those showed just a quick reference. So whenever you load the review screen, you can quickly just get a quick glance idea of what's occupied and who's in them. We actually went a little bit further and also provide even more drilled down information for these occupancies. Of course we did. You can actually click on these individual icons, basically the single person or the household, people icons, and the system again will pop up another window that this time provides information on the actual occupant in the bed. What it will show is it basically shows, how long they've been occupied, what the household is, and it kind of shows 2 different things. If it's just a single person, it basically shows who's occupying the bed. You know, hey, you know, Bill Johnson, who's 30, is directly in bed 3800. However, if there are a little household icon and they're there with household members, it'll also show all the household members as well as their age and the inventory they're in as well. So you know not only is Bill in this certain bed, you know the 3 household members are in these 3 beds as well. So it provides a lot of information with a click of a button for all your inventory and beds. Now what we also hear is we got a little checkout tool. That's a nice little thing to use. So if you know you're on this inventory item in the review screen, you go, oh, I forgot, I need to check this guy out. Go ahead and click this button, and it doesn't actually perform the checkout. It's more of a shortcut to take you to the checkout screen. What it'll actually do is take you to the program they're in and kind of take you right to the bed management module, so you can use the standalone checkout features. Whether you want to include household members or not, it's up to your choice, but that's what that option will do and is available for all users. Okay, now a little bit, like I said, they have a little bit different traits. I'm kind of going to show you each of the different ones. Facility, non-facility beds, basically the same as throughout the whole training, so we're going to jointly explain them here. Basically, there's broken up into 3 different areas. You'll show your year-round beds, seasonal beds, or overflow beds, and depending on their specific availability, they'll be shown under their specific area. Now, if you don't have any seasonal or overflow, you'll basically have a little, you know, no beds defined, and that's not anything you have to worry about. So that's how they're kind of broken up, both of those. So, and one note is with the seasonal and overflow, we followed the HUD data standards pretty tightly there, that seasonal and overflow beds can only be entered and configured for emergency shelter programs. So unless you're in an emergency shelter program, you basically won't have to worry about those. Now, one note here is although you can do a quick scan of what's available, what's occupied, we also here at the top of every screen basically provide almost like a little summary table that show you the total number of beds, total occupied, vacant, as well as reserved. So that's a nice little quick snapshot or quick information that you can glean from when looking at the review screen. All right, now we're going to go to units. Units are displayed probably a little bit differently than any of the other ones. Each unit that's displayed will basically just have a bold header almost with its name here. And since we kind of said before, units are just containers for bed. They don't really hold any configuration information. All the beds that have been configured and associated to that unit are basically shown underneath. So you're going to have to glean the actual bed configuration as well as the occupancy information, not from the unit, but from the individual beds of that unit. Now, I remember back during the check-in stage, we kind of talked about that full, not full kind of toggle and said, hey, don't worry, we have those options later. When looking at occupied beds, of course, if a bed's not occupied, it can't be full. But here's basically the options depending on what you answered, if it's full or not. Of course, if you answered full, the box will be checked. If it's not, it'll be unchecked. The system allows you to actually toggle these in real time anytime, you know, you need to make a change. Maybe you set an inventory, a unit is full accidentally, or you changed your mind and you want to put someone in here. You can come to the screen, uncheck the box, and it's all done in real time. You don't have to hit a save button or do anything. As soon as the box is checked or unchecked, the system will immediately enact that update to the inventory. The final one is vouchers. Like I said before, vouchers are kind of those hybrids between units and beds. But each voucher will basically have its own button within the system, and basically each voucher will have the little occupancy icons or not. The one thing here about that's different for vouchers than everything else, or when we talked about that whole closed, not closed message or prompt that comes up when putting people in and out of vouchers, instead of putting it actually out in the review screen, there wasn't really a good place to put it. We actually had to put that within the actual setup information. So when you click on the actual voucher, if it's occupied, basically the system will have this unblocked, and it'll basically be checked if it's closed to people and unchecked if it's available for other people. So you basically check and uncheck that box, basically hit the close button, and it'll automatically change it. So it's a way to, again, toggle between the two settings if a mistake was made, or, you know, change of heart, or inventory needs to be opened up for additional people. Okay, now we're going to go into the bed management tools area. This has a fair amount of additional functions outside just the check-in and check-out that are available. We're going to quickly go over them. When clients are currently checked into a bed, basically with the status of checked in, we also allow a little delete box here that can basically remove the inventory item that the client is currently enrolled into. Then, of course, everything's household-based. If you check household members before you hit this delete, it'll happen to them as well. Basically, once you hit it, it'll basically completely take them out of whatever inventory they're currently in and kind of delete the stay like it never happened. Now, as a note, that should only be used when a mistake is made. Say, basically, you put them in the wrong bed and the guy shouldn't have even been there. We kind of developed this feature because we didn't want to make you guys, check them out, check them into another bed, go back and delete that stay. It's basically a process that can be used in real time. However, if they're supposed to just be exited, please use the checkout process. Okay, the other tool that we want, I guess the last bit of the bed management tools, which are pretty in-depth, are within what we call the bed usage history tool. This displays all historical inventory stays for a client within that specific program record. Basically, any inventory stay that a client has a check-in and they've checked out of, whether the program's open, closed, basically remains in this area. Down there, it's basically shut by default. It's got a little show button. If you click on it, it basically opens up this grid area that shows any closed inventory stay with basically the default information of their, check-in, check-out date, their bed type, as well as their bed name. Just provides a lot of useful information, especially if you're having problems with your inventory and you can't get things to match up. This is a good area to look at each client to see, hey, what stays are these people in? Now, along with just being able to review this information, the system allows a process of editing as well as deleting these stays if there's a mistake. So once you basically click on any historical stay, the system will basically load the information into the grid and basically allow you to update or change the check-in or check-out dates. Say you accidentally checked in a person or checked out a person too early or too late and you want to go back and change that date, this is the perfect tool to do that with. Basically, you change the date and you hit save, the information will be updated. Now, at this time, the system doesn't allow you to change any inventory items, so if they're put in the wrong complete inventory item, we actually recommend, you're going to have to delete it and re-enter it. And we'll actually show you that process. We actually have the ability to add stays within this tool as well. But if you do change any kind of inventory stay dates, either the check-in or check-out date, the system will still kind of perform that overlap validation to make sure that, both either the client or the item they are in aren't going to cause any overlaps with what we talked about earlier. Same thing, if it's a mistake, basically you click on the record when it's down there. Instead of editing it, you can basically click to delete. And it'll basically remove it like it never happened. Again, should only be used when a mistake is made. The final option with this is basically an add tool. This process requires the ability to basically enter in a full inventory stay. Now, you don't want to use this tool if you're actually doing real-time stays, like, you're putting a person into a bed, because you need to know both the check-in and the checkout date to use this tool. And it's actually, as we talked about in the past, about the real-time stuff, most of all, the whole entire interface is built on real-time entry. So if you're looking to do any kind of backfill of data, say you forgot to put a person in a bed 2 months ago or, 3 weeks ago, this is the tool that you want to use. Because if my kind of rule of thumb is anytime you know the full stay, don't use the regular interface. Come and use this tool. It'll be quicker and easier for everybody. Basically, when you start, it basically has both the dates, and enter in both of them, and just simply hit the add button. And what it'll do is basically open up a process to basically kind of just exactly like the detailed process that we talked about during enrollment, as well as the standalone check-in. That'll prompt you for bed type, as well as the different inventory items. The interface is dynamic based on all those. Now, it uses the same kind of rules where it'll dynamically look at the inventory range that you put in and it'll only provide you with inventory types and the items that are vacant during those time frames. That's kind of why we asked for both dates. And we didn't want you to kind of sit there and put in 2 dates and go, I want to put them in bed 4, oh, it's filled. Bed 5, oh, it's filled. That way it kind of shortens that list so you know exactly what process or what inventory item to put them into. Okay, the last thing we want to talk about before we take a quick break here is some of the new inventory reporting in the system. Developed about 3 different inventory reports that are going to be really helpful to use during once inventory really starts get using. The first one's called the Housing Inventory Chart, which is basically the HIC. It's basically reports inventory information. It's basically designed to directly off HUD's defined standards for that report. It's kind of more of a managerial COC-based kind of report, but it is there. The Inventory Details Report is also more of a setup configuration report. Basically provides you with all the inventory items you've configured and entered for your specific agency, site, program, inventory, a bunch of filters with it. So we kind of recommend you running it, you know, after you've done setup to make sure everything looks good. The last one is the inventory usage, and that's probably going to be the one that's used the most. And that actually provides information on actual client stays within inventory. As I said before, these reports have a ton of different filters. You can filter by, you know, program, site, inventory, bed type, availability, status, and they also provide with manually enterable date ranges. So you can get a lot of information, whether you just want to see, you know, run the usage report for the current day so you can get your current usage, see who's in beds right now, or for the past year. And it basically will show every inventory item and all the historical stays, not just the current ones. And this one's going to be used very much when you're either just looking at your total usage or maybe you're troubleshooting a problem and like you're, my inventory stays don't seem to look up. I think I'm missing something here. This is a great report to print out and use, especially in regards to that bed history tool. So if you're backfilling data or putting in old data that was missed or needs to be corrected, you know, we recommend, you know, print out a usage report, kind of go to this tool and kind of, you know, should provide you the information you need to kind of get everything fixed.